Good morning, everyone. Uh, this is Navin Pathak from Entry India, and today we are going to be having another fun session on shipping to the US. Um, you see, let me introduce myself first. My name is Navin Pathak, and I am COO at Entry India LLC, that is a New Jersey US based company. And in short, we work with the American brands to help them establish in the US market. And on the reverse side, for the Indian brands who are interested in the US market. So our charter is to find opportunities and to connect those opportunities with the right companies wherever those opportunities exist, whether in India or whether in US. It's very simple model that we follow is to find an opportunity. Let's say it is in medical device, it is in home furnishings, it is in healthcare, it is in defense, and then convert that into a project and then find the right people who want to do business with each other. Now that's the bigger 60,000 foot view. What happens if you drop down a little more? Then you say, you know what, Naveen or Entry India, we want to launch ourselves, let's say in India or let's say in US. So what are you looking for? Well, everyone is looking for buyers. You want to sell your product finally. That's what you are expanding your business for. But before you do that, there are many things that will come across where you have to figure out what is to be done because this is a foreign land. You have no idea where to begin, what kind of questions you should be asking, who are the right people you should be connecting with, or what kind of structure you should have that protects your business in a foreign land. Now, what it means now, this is where the real part comes in when you say, you know what, let's say someone says, this is, I'm just building some ground for the talk today. Companies in India and well, they want to come here in US. COVID has changed everything. Everyone is very well aware. Uh, well, I am pretty sure most of us has here would definitely have ordered milk um, via Amazon or online apps, right? In the COVID time period. So the business is changing big time. I know India is going through a very rough challenge time right now with the COVID. But at the same time, I'm seeing a lot of growth happening. So when I say that the model is changing, what I mean is that e-commerce is coming big time in US and in India, and companies are doing very well. I mean, well, I would not say they're exploiting it, the situation, but they're taking, it is coming into the favor because people don't want to move out, didn't want to move out earlier, and they were ordering online. Now, what's happening in the business side? Business side, uh, I can tell you from US land, a lot of orders have been cancelled because people wanted here the order fulfillment to be done within 3 days, within 4 days. Nobody wants to order and wait for 45 days for a shipment or the consignment to come from India. So these models changing. So we noticed in last 1 year how things are shaping up. So what really happened with that? You are a manufacturer and very simple. You say, I want to sell in the US market, very simple. Then you say, what can I do or how do I begin? Well, if you don't want to wait for 45 days of consignment, so you sending consignment, how about you put your consignment right here in a warehouse? Well, that's easy said than done. Why? Because you have to be aware of multiple parts of how should you begin, what it means. Would you be able to just rent a warehouse and send your stuff? No. So you have to take certain action. Who's the consignee, right? So who is the one on whose name you are sending the consignment at? So what happened there is, and how Entry India filled up that gap is, we are working with Indian brands to form their business setup. What it converts. See, in value chain, you want a warehouse. That is the value chain number one. You say we want to rent a warehouse and do order fulfillment through e-commerce portals like Wayfair, Amazon, Etsy, Groupon, eBay, whatever, you name it. But for now, you say my other part of the value chain is a banking. Now, how would you bank? Well, for banking, commercial banking, you need a company. So in value chain, it is warehousing for banking, and then you have a company formation. So this is the whole structure that End India formed, is that we'll help you set up your business with one signature of mine. You can set up your whole business in just maybe 6, 7 hours. You are set up. with your bank account, with your company formation, of course, registration, and of course the warehouse. Now, that is also, well, I understand, and the experts here understand, but to a person who is in India, who has never dealt with the US market, may have no idea how should they begin. Now, that's where the crux is. What it means that, of course, entering the US market in India, you are in control. You know that an order has come, or you know that you have to have the inventory in the US market. You say, I'm ready to ship. Now, what happens when that consignment reaches the US shore? From there, everything changes. What it means, it is at the customs. What are the port facilities? The customs, the shipping from that custom warehouse to your order fulfillment facility, wherever it is. Now, to cover all those aspects, whatever is required, I know these are these are big sessions by themselves itself. So what we are going to do is we are going to cover 10 minutes call, talk by the expert, and then we will have Q&A session in the end. But I also would want any questions that come across to you, please write them in the chat box, and we will cover those questions in the end, not during this session. So you would have to wait a little, but listen to every expert that we have here. These are all big experts, very solid on the ground, and there is a solid representation from the Port Authority itself. But before I move forward, I would love to first of all, introduce my panels. And for that, let me first of all introduce Anuj, who is going to be a moderator, and he will be taking on the Q&A session. Anuj is a business head with one of the leading apparel manufacturing companies in India, Chelsea Mills. So he worked from Gurgaon. He has a very solid, extensive experience in export marketing, in international business development, supply chain management, customer retention, product management, and heads the overall apparel operation for the company. He ensures that the operation runs smoothly and business generates profit without any compromise on integrity and value system of the organization. So that's about Anuj, and you will see Anuj shortly. But let me see if Vijay Prakash is there, because he's one of the speakers, but I got a call from him. I don't see him anywhere here. Vijay, you are there? Maybe he could not connect. Vijay, maybe whenever he comes next, I'll introduce him to you, and then he can talk about. Vijay is a zonal general manager for NSIC based out of Delhi. They have 5 million subscribers to their MSME Mart that is run by the government of India, and they're highly interested in expanding the business to the US market. I'll introduce him to in a little bit, but first of all, let's go to our next speaker. I am going to introduce Nicholas Raspanti to you. So Nicholas works in the business development and industry relations division for the port department at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. Now, keep this in mind that as a Mid-Atlantic account manager, he covers a territory that includes New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, and Virginia. This is one of the most highly populated region in the northeast side of the US, in the whole US, right? So, the primary goal for him is to retain and sustain grow volumes with existing beneficial cargo owners and stakeholders, as well as promote new maritime business opportunities. So his experience will count a lot in this call. So just to begin, I'll have Nicholas, please take on to your side of the game, and the mic is all yours.
Thank you, Navin, and good morning to those in America, and good afternoon to everyone in India. Just give me one moment to share my screen here. Navin, I need you to enable participant screen sharing, please.
Oh, okay.
No worries.
1 second, Nick. Let me see your name. I should have done that in advance.
That's okay. I'll get started in the meantime. Just let me know when it's available.
You are ready.
Good. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, and Navin and Entry India, thank you again for this opportunity. As Navin mentioned, I work in the business development and industry relations team at the Port Department at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. It's always important for us to engage with customers and service providers, or importers, exporters, shippers, to accomplish our three goals in the business development team, which are to promote and market the Port of New York and New Jersey, always work to retain and improve our existing business, and then attract new business. And really, who do we do that with? It's either the owners of the cargo, so your beneficial cargo owners, importers, exporters, or shippers, as well as the entities that help facilitate the movement of that cargo. So whether it be the ocean carriers, freight forwarders and brokers, trade associations, marine terminal operators, freight railroads, trucking companies, warehouses and distribution centers, really everyone throughout the entire supply chain. We work collectively to accomplish those very broad objectives, but obviously there's many things specifically that fall under that. So always appreciate these opportunities to get out in front and talk to folks about the Port of New York and New Jersey. So this slide here, I just want to give a brief facility overview. So important to note, the Port of New York and New Jersey is a landlord port. That means we lease this property that you're looking at here to private operators. So the Port of New York and New Jersey, it's approximately 3,000 acres of maritime waterfront property located throughout the New York Harbor, what you're looking at here. So half of this property is dedicated to our container terminal operations, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But in addition to containers, which is our primary business, we also have auto facilities, cruise terminals, all types of bulk, liquid, dry, scrap metal, concrete, orange juice, edible oils, really runs the gamut, as well as additional maritime support services like truck depots, warehouse operations, and then an intermodal express rail system that covers the entire port. So going back to the marine terminal operators, we have 6 marine terminal operators. Again, these are private companies that lease the land from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which is a bi-state government agency between the states of New York and New Jersey. So we have Port Newark Container Terminal here, as well as MAR terminals, APM terminals, GCT New York, GCT Bayonne, as well as Red Hook in Brooklyn, New York. Most of our operations are located in the state of New Jersey, and then GCT New York and Red Hook Container Terminal are located in the state of New York. So I wanted to cover, quickly, talking about a really important component of the Port of New York and New Jersey's appeal, and what makes it actually the largest port on the East Coast and 3rd largest in the United States in terms of container volume. There are many factors, but this is certainly a very important one. As Navin mentioned, we are located in a highly concentrated and affluent consumer market. We have approximately 15 to 16% of U.S. market share, over 33% of East Coast market share compared to our other ports, and access to consumers, speed to market access really helps drive that appeal for shippers looking to route cargo to high population centers. We can hit, as you see here, I'm not going to cite these numbers, but we hit more essentially in consumers in 1 hour than our top competitors on the East Coast, the Port of Virginia, as well as the Port of Savannah do in about 4 hours. So that is always very appealing, again, to shippers routing cargo to high population centers. We have over 1 billion square feet of warehouse space within a 50-mile radius of the port, as well as we are located 1/3 of the nation's GDP is located within 250 miles of this gateway. We also have good access to Eastern Canada as well, where a lot of their population is located, and also access to many of highways, interstate highways that can get freight moving by truck. And I'll talk a little bit more about rail going forward. So here's a snapshot of our top trading partners by country. If you notice, the import pie chart is larger than the export pie chart. We are predominantly an import gateway. The U.S. is predominantly an import nation now. However, due to that fact, again, that we are located in this, highly concentrated consumer marketplace, we are heavy on the import side. Exports are about 1/3 of our overall volume compared to imports. And, no secrets here with our top trading partners. China is number one in terms of imports, and then India, Vietnam, Italy, and Germany. On the export side, India is our number one trading partner, and then it goes, China and down what you can see there. Again, no secrets here on the import side with typical top commodities like furniture, electronics, clothing and apparel, machinery and parts, as well as beverages. And then on the export side, it's really more of our recycled goods, scrap metal, paper pulp, wood pulp, things of that nature. Also, machinery and parts are important on the export side. Automobiles, actually. But what's important here, we have a very diversified origin base compared to the number one and number two ports in the country, which are the port of Los Angeles, number one, and the port of Long Beach, number two. So that gives us many options in terms of origins, whereas we have vessels coming through the Suez Canal, going through the Panama Canal, and we have significant transatlantic trade between the United States and Europe. But very important to note, in terms of India, the Port of New York and New Jersey is the largest port, over 30% market share in the country, that trades with India, both on the import and export side, and that continues to grow. So very important to talk about the ocean carrier services that call the Port of New York and New Jersey. We have services from all the major ocean carriers and the alliances you're looking at here. I can certainly talk about that after if there's any questions what these alliances are. But important to note about the ocean carrier services, as I mentioned, we have many origins that are serviced at the Port of New York, New Jersey with these ocean carriers, but they do call the port over 70% of the time as first port of call. So what that means is they come to this port first, discharge their freight, and then make their runs down the East Coast to the other ports. So again, that's speed to market access. The goods get here first, whether they're getting on the local market or going out on our rail network, which I'll talk about now. Rail is very important to the Port of New York, New Jersey. We consider the center of the country, the United States, is really the battleground amongst ports. We call it discretionary cargo because basically it has discretion. It could go to any port, mostly any of the large ports, to get to locations in the Midwest. Chicago is a major rail hub that's serviced by the Class 1 railroads on the East Coast, which are NS and CSX. And we're also serviced by Conrail as our local operator. But we have access to over 50 destinations that you're looking at here in the Midwest and Eastern Canada. We can hit these markets within a day and a half or less in some cases, in normal timeframes, I should say. But we do have a rail lift capacity of 1.5 million lifts, and we did approximately 705,000 rail lifts in 2020, which was a record year. So again, there's a lot of room to grow, and this is very important for the Port of New York and New Jersey, which will keep us competitive. It's very hard for our port competitors to really get access to our local market, as I mentioned earlier. So rail is important, and it definitely gives options for shippers, because if you're trying to get your cargo to this local market as well as get on the rail, Your freight's coming to the port first on an ocean carrier 70% of the time, getting worked at our marine terminals, getting on the rail or getting out to the local market in some cases before it even leaves the berth and heads down to the other ports on the East Coast. So that was a very quick overview, facility overview, and some capabilities. Again, this is to get into the details with our freight forwarder and broker partners that are on the call here. So happy to answer any questions now or even after. Navin and has my contact info, and I'll certainly share these slides. So thank you all again.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick, for a wonderful presentation. Okay, so next in line is with us is Bill Skinner. Bill, welcome to the show today. Bill Skinner, let me introduce him to you. Bill Skinner is the president of W. Bill Skinner Customs Broker, and he has served as president of New York, New Jersey Foreign Forwarder, Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association. That's a pretty long acronym there. Since 2017, he's been a member of the board since 2003. Bill previously served as the organization's vice president of imports, vice president of education, and member of the Port Performance Task Force. In 2021, he became a member of the Council of Port Performance. Bill's experience began as a second lieutenant in the Army Reserve. That's a wonderful experience you have, Bill, there, where you served as a 4-year tour of duty with the Army in the Transportation Corps. As an executive officer of a stevedoring company and platoon leader of hovercraft light freight company, Bill supervised in LOTS. LOTS stands for Logistics Over the Shore. Operations in Honduras, Honolulu, Virginia, and Turkey. When Bill entered his tour of duty, he started working as a proud SOB. Okay, that's SOB stand for son of a broker, according to William. For W.B. Skinner Company. In 1991, he helped the company become licensed by FMC as a freight forwarder and earned his custom broker license. Additionally, Bill served on the NCBFAA Customs Committee representing Area 2. Bill graduated magna cum laude from Niagara University and earned MBA from Stelton Hall University. Well, welcome, Bill. Welcome to the show. And I'm going to have you be the spotlight, and then
you got the screens, right?
Yes. I'm on the screen for you. Okay, there we go. Screen is on.
There we go. Yeah, you can start there earlier. That's like one of the last slides. There you go. Go up higher. There you go. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you, Navin. Appreciate the opportunity to speak on behalf of the New York, New Jersey Forwarders and Brokers Association. And you're not the only one that has trouble with that acronym. We are an association that are of businesses in the New York, New Jersey area dedicated to the port and business through the port. We have over 150 members, and it's mainly our membership consists of freight forwarders, customs brokers, NVOs, and affiliated membership that support the maritime and international transportation. And you mentioned that I'm a son of a broker, which my father started the business over 50 years ago, and I laugh because he built it on the backs of a lot of importers from India, because he would take the double R train up from the Trade Center area and just walk up and down Broadway, and a lot of the Indian wholesalers that were selling brass elephants and garments from India were located in that area. So thank you very much for helping build my business. Appreciate that. But so anyway, that was what I wanted to do was discuss freight forwarding, right? So freight forwarding, right, is you can move on to the next slide, Navin. started from scratch, right? Freight forwarding is a high efficiency method of shipping goods from one destination to another by way of various transport carriers, including sea, air, rail, and road. A freight forwarder is the go-between representative who acts as an intermediary between a shipper and the shipper's preferred transportation center service carriers. So basically, we're an in-between facilitator of moving freight. And the knowledge that we gain because we deal with all modes of transportation is a huge benefit to our customers. So it's highly important for you when you set up your operations to find yourself a freight forwarder that knows the market that you're going from and to, and can help facilitate movement of cargo, especially given today's high cost of shipping. Next slide. Now the basic model of transportation and freight goes with Incoterms. Incoterms are the terms that are used in the transaction. So when you're selling your product to someone in the United States, the terms that you use when you develop your contract will tell everybody in the process who is responsible for what in the transportation of the goods, who's responsible for costs, and who's responsible for the risks. They recently renewed terms and changed them in 2020. These are the Incoterms from 2020: EXWs, XWorks, CIP, FCA, DAP, DPU, CPT, and DDP are all for any mode of transportation. They can go by rail, sea, air, and then for sea and waterway specifically, you have FAS, CFR, FOB, and CIF, and I'll get into the details on the next slide. You can move on to there we go. Oh, you jump one, there we go. So XWorks is basically from your door. You're selling your goods to the buyer, and the buyer basically takes responsibility for everything from your door. That's the least, in terms of transportation, that's the least responsibility that the seller has. FCA is free carrier. You have two options with the free carrier. You can you deliver at seller's premises or deliver elsewhere, and the seller is responsible for the export and the buyer is responsible for the import charges. The CPT is carriage paid to. Seller pays for the transportation to the named place, but you don't have the transportation risk. So you're paying for the transportation, but the buyer is assuming the transportation risk. That's an important distinction. CIP, carriage and insurance paid to, is basically the same as carriage paid to with insurance. So the seller will contract for all risks insurance against the buyer's transportation risk. DAP, delivered at place, delivery when the seller places the goods at the buyer's disposal, not unloaded. So the buyer is responsible for the unloading of the cargo. DPU, delivered at place, unloaded. That's the same as DAP, but the seller is responsible for the unloading. DPU is delivered at place, unloaded. It's and DDP is delivered duty paid. That's the seller is paying for basically everything: transportation, clearance, and delivery, all covered by the seller. So as you work your way from XWorks to DDP, the risk and responsibility of the transportation moves more from the where it's high for the buyer on XWorks, it's lower for the buyer under DDP. The buyer won't have any responsibility basically until he gets the freight at destination. Next slide. These are the sea and waterway Incoterms. FAS is free alongside ship. Well, basically, the seller is delivering the goods alongside the vessel. The buyer is arranging the carriage and paying the transportation. FOB is free on board. The seller is delivering the goods on board the vessel, and the buyer arranges and pays the carriage. CFR, cost and freight. The seller delivers the goods on board the vessel and arranges carriage. The seller pays the transport, but the buyer assumes the risk. And CIF, cost, insurance, and freight, which is CFR plus the insurance, where the buyer, the seller insures the buyer's risk and arranges and pays for transportation. So the main ones that we discuss in our world as freight forwarders are FOB and CIF. Those are the oldest terms and the ones that are typical that you hear. When basically FOB, the seller is delivering the goods on board the vessel, and CIF is where the seller is responsible for the export, but the buyer is responsible for the import. And the CFR, cost and freight and insurance, is covered by the seller. Next slide. Now, going from that to this is, I wanted to give you some idea of what the numbers look like from actual shipments in 2021. This is a crazy year. The market is really tight. It's really high demand, and the costs are through the roof. So it's important that you find yourself somebody that can help you with navigating the cost structure and the movement of your cargo. Because getting your container on board is really important nowadays, and knowing who can and cannot get your containers on board would be important. So these are the top carriers issuing house bills in 2021 from India to New York. I broke it down straight from those ports. The Maersk Lines would be the top, and MSC, and then these are house bills of lading, so it's also including freight forwarding and NVOs. So it just gives you an idea of the volume and who is actually cutting bills of lading from India to New York. Next slide.
Oops.
Oh, yep, there we go. Now this, back one more. There we go. This one here is it gives you a pretty good picture of the market from India to New York, and it shows you the volume that New York and New Jersey have over the rest of the country. You can see the red portion up top. That's the New York numbers on. And then you go down a little bit below, and that's New Jersey, and then everybody else is underneath that. So basically, New York and New Jersey doubles the volume of the rest of the country in terms of house bills lading from India to the area. So it's a very highly like Nick was pointing out, there's a lot of volume from India to New York, New Jersey. And we are built to handle that volume, and the freight forwarders and brokers in our area know how to move the freight through the area to get it to the destination that you need it to go to. And we also have the warehousing and facilities to help with that move as well. Next slide. All right, that's my presentation. I hope you got something out of it. If I did not cover something that's on your mind, please feel free to put it into the chat box, and I'll be sure to get you an answer if I don't know it offhand. Thank you for this opportunity, and back to you, Navin.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Skill, for this for this wonderful presentation. Next in line we have with us is Charlene. So let me just, real quick, give me 1 second here. I'll bring up Charlene's presentation and then introduce Charlene to you. So Charlene Raleigh is a vice president with John Stier Company, a custom brokerage and forwarding company founded in 1905. So you can imagine 116 years old company. She started at John Stier Company in 2001 and has led the company a New York operation since 2002. So that's a great deal of experience, Charlene, you have there. She graduated from Penn State University. Charlene obtained a broker's license in 1989. That's a pretty long experience, pretty big experience you have. Charlene also served as the board of governors of the New York, New Jersey Freight Forwarding Forwarders and Brokers Association since 2005. She has been elected as the treasurer in 2007, served as the vice president imports from 2009 to 2013, and then was elected as the president and served from 2013 to 2017. So that's a long experience. That's a big, solid experience. She's also served as the association's board of governors chairperson from 2017 to 2021. He also currently serves as a senior advisor to association's board of governors. So here we have Charlene, who will talk about her experience and give a presentation. So Charlene, I will be doing the screen share.
Hello, everyone. Welcome.
Wonderful, Charlene. Let me bring your screen now. There you go.
Thank you. So I'm going to cover bringing imports into the U.S. Just kind of, we're going to move down from the 60,000 level to a real quick bite down about 30,000. So still a high level view of customs clearance in the U.S. We are going to cover, Mr. Silverman is going to cover some of the initial responsibilities that you need to do to be able to bring in product into the U.S. to set up with a customs broker. One thing you also need to think about is when you are bringing to U.S., what kind of entry are you going to bring in? Because as Navin said, some people might be thinking about having a fulfillment center in the United States. So you need to make a distinction whether you are going to have a consumption entry versus a bonded warehouse entry. And you could also think about putting your product into what's called a foreign trade zone, which is a unique entry opportunity where it's kind of viewed that it has not yet hit the U.S. soil. So you can put it there and then you pay duties. As with a bonded warehouse, you pay duties when it comes out of the warehouse. So the invoice is important documentation that's required to be able to make entry into the U.S. This document has where the information required for customs to make entry. So I just highlight some of the real important information, even though you're going to have PO numbers and other information on that document. It's important that the shipper and manufacturers on that document. Besides the name, the address also needs to be on the document, because that information we retrieve from that information, we create what's called a manufacturer ID number for customs. So that is very important that is detailed information. The buyer needs to be on the document because customs needs to know who's going to be receiving the document in the US. Detailed description of the products. This is very important. It is not something simple. For instance, somebody might be sending, if it was wine to the US, they would just put down that the bring in red wine is what's in the container. But for customs purposes, we need to break that down. We need to know the size of the bottles that the wine is in. We need to know the alcohol content that the wine is in. For some wines, you even need to know what variety the wine is. Or, for instance, if you bring in a shirt, is it men's, is it women's, is it unisex? You know, does it have pockets? Does it have embroidery? Does it have the long sleeves. So there's a lot of information that needs to be on the document. What kind of fabric is it made from? The country of origin is very important because some countries have where there's different policies like GSP, where there's a special category that you might be able to have a reduced duty rate. So the country of origin is very important. As Bill discussed, the Incoterms is very important because that dictates how much duty is paid on the invoice. You are able to deduct, if it's, for instance, a CIF, you are able to deduct the insurance and freight out of the charges, and you're paying duty on the FOB basis. Valuation, that is very important that the correct valuation is placed on the invoice. So whatever your agreement is with the buyer, you need to be able to put the correct valuation on that. Any deductions, any additions, they all need to be presented on that document so that the correct valuation is presented to customs. The currency, you need to say whether it's an Indian rupee or whether it's US dollars, or for some people who go through third countries, it could be euros. That information is critical to be able to make the correct duty payments to customs. Next slide, please. So there are many special categories of merchandise. I listed a few here. Fabric that comes in, there needs to be a fabric detail sheet that accompanies the documentation. So you need to be able to tell what the fabric's made of, usually percentages of different products that are there. There's wharf, there's yarn numbers, there's a lot of different information. So that is a critical document to be presented with the documents. Textiles. As I said, there's usually a textile document sheet, again, to be able to list out all the information that's required to make an entry, because if you don't know whether the product is knit or woven, or whether it's, for instance, a sweater, how many stitches are in the sweater, it could be a sweater, it could be a blouse, that information is required. Steel, you need to have a steel summary invoice sheet to be able to indicate whether that steel is an alloy or not. So that's very important to be able to have with the documents. Chemicals, again, needs to be very descriptive on the invoice because there's a wide range of chemical products in the chemicals, where it's organic, inorganic. That's 2 different chapters in the tariff schedule. And then you have a huge breakdown of the different types of chemicals as far as there's mixtures that go through the tariff book. And then there's many others that you can reach out to brokers in the US to be able to discuss with you if the product that you are importing requires any special description sheets or any other specific information that's required for that merchandise. Next slide, please. Now, besides customs bringing into the US, there are well over 40 different, what we call PGAs, which are participating government agencies that regulate products coming into the US. I listed the main ones here: Food and Drug Administration, if you bring in food, medical supplies, cosmetics, even something that people won't think of, such as TV monitors, because there could be radiation given off of it. They're all monitored by FDA. If you do sell products to the US, if you are doing food products or anything, you need to make sure that you're registered with the FDA. United States Department of Agriculture. If you, again, food, if you bring in food products, it's regulated by USDA. Food Safety and Inspection Services, they are a division of the USDA, but their concern is of meat products and catfish. So that product you need to have, again, special forms. The manufacturer overseas needs to be regulated by FSIS, so that's very important. Environmental Protection Agency, this is for pesticides. You have TSCA statements for chemicals that come in to the US. If it's a car, that's also regulated by EPA. Consumer Safety Product Commission, that has where it's baby goods and toys that have to be sent through their agency. Alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. If there's any type of alcohol or tobacco coming into U.S., again, it's regulated by this PGA, and there are specific forms. There's excise taxes that are included that have to be reported to these agencies. Fish and Wildlife Service. If you have any products that contain what's under wildlife or even plants that are CITES, even if it's non-CITES, it needs to go through Fish and Wildlife. Their penalties are very severe if a product is brought into the US and it is not reported or the correct documentation is not provided to Fish and Wildlife. And as I said, there's well over 40 additional PGAs. It's too far to mention during this session. So again, it's critical to reach out to a licensed broker in the US. I would advise that you look for someone who is a member of the New York, New Jersey Freight Forwarders Association, Bring Through New York, because these are the companies that attend meetings, they're at the customs meetings, they're at the broker meetings, so they're well aware of and updated on any current policies coming through the US government. Next slide, please. So the customs clearance process. So initially you have to reach out to a customs broker. Mr. Silverman will tell you some of the items that require power of attorney and bond. After that is set up with the broker, then you need to be able to send the documents to the broker. So depending upon whether originals are required to various government agencies or not, usually they're sent to us first initially by email, there's scanned documents, and then if there's originals required, they are sent to the broker via a overnight carrier. Then the broker works on the documents. He works with customs, any other PGA clearance to be able to get the necessary clearances to be able to pick up the cargo from the port. They also check with the steamship lines, see if there's any charges due to the steamship line, original bill of lading. If it's not express release, the original bill of lading needs to be sent to the MEOCC or the ocean carrier. They send a pickup document to a trucker so that they can arrange to go to the terminal to pick up your container, take it to the warehouse or to the seller, wherever you're selling it to. Now, I've been basically saying ocean. I know Nick covered ocean, but there's also a large air contingent that also comes through JFK into Newark. That is also an arm of the Port Authority in New York, New Jersey. And then we track and make sure that the shipment is picked up. Then we also obtain the funds from the importer of record and make sure that the duty is paid to customs. That is my presentation on customs clearance into US. Again, if the first slide had my email, contact information. If you wish to reach out to me and you have questions here, please, we welcome the questions.
Yeah, sure, everyone. Well, the contact details are there on the screen. Note it down. Feel free to connect. Right. Okay. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you for this wonderful presentation. And now next in line, we have another expert with us. Robert, I'm bringing you in. And so we have Robert here. Let me go over Robert's profile here, first of all, so that you understand, his experience, his profile. It's going to take me some time, but I'm going to go over it. Okay, Robert, thank you very much for joining in. Welcome to the show once again. So Robert Silverman is a founding partner of the New York-based law firm, short is GDSLK. It is one of the largest law firms specializing in customs law. Please keep in mind, it is customs law and related trade matters. Before entering into the private practice to form the company, Mr. Silverman served as a trial attorney in the customs section of the Civil Division of the U.S. Department of Justice, where he represented U.S. Customs in proceedings before the Court of International Trade federal district courts and the Court of Appeals for the Federal Circuit. The firm's clients include importers. Now pay attention to this. The firm's clients include importers, exporters, retailers, foreign manufacturers, buying agents, trading companies, trade associations, custom house brokers, and freight and foreign governments. Mr. Silverman and his firm act as customs and trade counsel to some of the largest and most prestigious multinational companies involved in manufacture and distribution of luxury goods, apparel, footwear, electronics, automobiles, and food products. The firm also represents exporters in connection with compliance issues and has an entire group dedicated to anti-dumping and trade matters. Well, so Robert, let's begin from here now. I know there are more things to say, but I will share the profile with everyone as we move along after this event is over. Okay, so Robert, I'm going to do the screen share for your presentation. Uh, there we have. Here we go.
Okay. Good morning, good afternoon, everybody. I'm participating. Really got this opportunity because I am the Customs Counsel to the New York, New Jersey Freight Forwarders and Brokers Association. And I've been doing that for quite a long time. Thank you for this opportunity. Can we go to the next slide, Navin? Thank you. Okay, so this is probably the most important slide that we have. And what it says is, and this is what we do for a lot of our clients, you can structure your product or your transaction to minimize your customs duties. And the important thing is that you need to be transparent with the customs authorities here, or if not, you run into some serious problems. So let me give you just an example. There's an old case, 1911 Supreme Court case here, where a lady was importing a pearl necklace from France, and she realized that the duty rates on pearls were lower than the duty rate on necklaces. So she took apart the necklace, imported it as pearls, and then put it together as a necklace here in the United States. And the Supreme Court said you're able to do that as long as you're upfront and honest with the customs service. So, and that's what we do for a lot of our clients. If they come to us in advance, we help them structure their importations or their transactions to reduce customs duties. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. What's important here is that to be an importer in the United States, you do not need to be a U.S. company. Individuals can be importers of record, partnerships can be importers of record, and you can be even a foreign company or a foreign national can be an importer of record. In order to be an importer of record, you need to have a financial interest in the merchandise. You need to get a customs bond, which your customs broker can usually provide for you. You need to have an identity number, which is either an IRS number if you're located here or you create a company here, or if not, your customs broker can get you an ID number from customs. Most people who import goods on a commercial level do it through a customs broker. You can do it on your own, but there's so much headache and so much knowledge required that most people use customs brokers. In order to use a customs broker, you'll need to issue a power of attorney to your customs broker. Next slide, please. So, quite some time ago, in order to increase security at the US ports, Customs put a program in place where before you send any merchandise to the United States, you have to do this importer security filing. Usually the customs broker takes care of that for you. Then, as Charlene went through this, you're going to need a commercial invoice and a packing list. You'll need a bill of lading, which is a title document showing who owns the merchandise at the time of entry. Then the customs broker will do a filing and get you a bond. And also, customs broker or my firm, or you can try it on your own, that's up to you, will help you get the clearances you need from all the different participating government agencies. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, everything that's imported into the United States is supposed to be marked with country of origin to let the ultimate consumer know where the goods were made. There's a belief in this country that some consumers may buy goods from one country as opposed to another, or they favor goods from one country as opposed to another, and as a result, everything that comes in. So the question is, who is the ultimate customer? If you're sending in retail type goods, like wearing apparel or jewelry, then the ultimate customer is the consumer. And there you're supposed to be marking your product with origin so that the consumer knows where the product is made. So the marking has to be permanent, it has to be in English, it has to be legible, it has to be conspicuous, but it can be in different ways. So for example, if you're importing jewelry, you're not going to have to disfigure the jewelry, maybe just a paper tag that says made in India is satisfactory. Apparel, you need to have a sewn-in label of some type. For metal items, it needs to be stamped on the items. There's different ways to do it depending on the product. If you're importing, let's call it production goods, so let's say you're selling into the United States leather, then the ultimate consumer then is the person that buys the leather, that makes it into handbags or shoes or whatever. That person needs to know the country of origin. The other issue, and we're seeing a lot of this lately because of the additional duties on goods from China, is country of origin determination. So if something is grown in a country or produced in that country, that's going to be your country of origin. But sometimes they split the operations. You may take components from China and then take them into India and make them into new products. So if you create a new product in India from components or parts in another country, then India may be the country of origin. You want to make sure that you get this right, because if you have the wrong country of origin marked on your goods, they may not be able to come into the United States. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. Classification. Most of the modern trading nations, I'm sure including the United States and India and Europe and Russia, let's say almost everybody uses this harmonized tariff schedules. We have our little version of it, harmonized tariff schedules of the United States. But you have the same basic program in India. And there are over 25,000 tariff provisions in the harmonized tariff schedule. What happens is if you import a product, either you or your customs broker or your customs lawyer has to figure out which of these provisions your item is classified. Everything has to go into a provision. And you pick a number. In our country, it's a 10-digit number. The number will describe the product, and it will determine the duty rate. It will let you know whether it's eligible for special duty programs. Charlene mentioned generalized system of preferences, but we have other duty-free programs that are available. It will tell you whether or not it's subject to quotas, which are limits on how much you can import every year. It will tell you whether it's subject to these participating government agencies. Classification is critical. And again, so let's say you have something that's a product, it's classified under provision A and it's 10%, and you look around and you hunt out that I can import parts of a product, excuse me, and it's only the duty rate for that under a different tariff provision is 5%. You then can import the parts and put them together in the United States to save yourself the extra 5% duty. And we do that a lot for our clients. Go to the next slide, please. Valuation. So all of the, again, major trading companies, trading partners use the same basic formulas. The one that's used most often is called transaction value. It's the price paid by the buyer to the seller when the goods are sold for export to the US. And under these formulas, we exclude certain items and we include certain items. So if you sell something to the United States, Bill was talking about this, FOB foreign port, that's usually going to be your dutiable value. But if you sell something to the United States, which includes cost, insurance, and freight, then you can back out international insurance and freight charges. But you must know what the actual amounts of those charges are, and you must be able to document them. Not included in the slide, but very important here, is if you're importing into the United States, you need to keep records for 5 years. That's important. Okay. Also, here, going back to value, if you're selling something into the United States, let's say it's some big project and it's going to be put together in the United States, you can back out the US construction or assembly costs, but again, they have to be separately documented and separately identified. And here, this next line is very important. So let's just say a United States importer sends you gold to be used to manufacture jewelry. You manufacture jewelry. The gold costs $90 and the making cost is $10. Your dutiable value is going to have to include, go back please. We're not done with the other slide. Thank you. Maybe I'm taking up too much time. It needs to move along. Okay, so it's no problem. So the dutiable value is not $10 alone. It must include the cost of the jewelry, of the gold that was sent. That's called an assist. And then here, certain royalties like patent royalties will also be dutiable. Let's talk for a minute about the first sale program. This is one of our most popular duty saving programs. Here, if a factory sells to a trading company at 100 and a trading company sells to the US importer at 120, the dutiable value can be 100 if you set up your documentation properly and you disclose to customs what you're doing. But again, the paperwork has to be perfect and you must keep your paperwork. We talk about, this is the last one on this slide, then we can move on. We talk about unbundling non-dutiable costs. So sometimes we have goods sold from a factory to a company in the United States at, let's say again, $100, and we realize that we can break out a buying commission fee if the manufacturer will work with us and create a separate buying company. So now we can reduce the dutiable value to 90 and pay a separate buying commission of 10% that would not be dutiable. Again, goes back to our main concept of structuring transactions to minimize duty. Okay, let's go to the next slide. E-commerce, very popular in the last few years, growing exponentially. So the way to set this up, let's say you want to have an e-commerce business, you can avoid customs duties altogether if it's done right. If it's done wrong, you're going to wind up with a huge penalty case. So if I'm a customer and I want to buy a product through e-commerce and the shipment comes to me and it's less than $800 for the day, I don't have to pay any duty on it, assuming that's the only shipment I get during the day, and assuming that it's not subject to food and drug clearance, FTA clearance, quotas, or any of the other things. Also here, again, avoiding duties. You can't say, I'm going to import something for $4,000 and break it up into $800 shipments to avoid the duty. So again, it's a program that can be done if right and can save you duty if it's done properly. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so this is a very important part of our business. We have the ability to apply to the customs service in advance to let them know this is what we want to do, and we want you, customs, to confirm our classification, our country of origin, or our valuation. And we have a database of customs rulings that are available to us to look at. If someone comes to me with a product, I can look it up and say, oh, it's already covered by a ruling. I don't think you need your own ruling. Or I might say, I think the law on this is pretty settled. You don't need to get a ruling, but if it's gonna involve a lot of money, then you may want to get your own customs ruling, and that's something we can assist you with. Next slide, please. Okay, I think this is the last slide. So this is we call this the parade of the horribles, right? So this is what happens if you get it wrong. If you get it wrong, and the customs service thinks that you've done this, made intentional misstatements on your entries, there are criminal penalties that are available for them to pursue. 5 years in prison, multiple duty penalties, and so on. If they don't think you've done something intentionally, made intentional misstatements, a classic intentional misstatement is, I'm going to buy at 100, but I'm going to show the invoice at $50 just to avoid the duty. That would be a crime. But let's just say you make a mistake, you don't include packing charges, or you don't include assists, and it's either as a result of fraud, gross negligence, or even negligence, customs can assess a penalty, a civil penalty against you, and that will depend on whether it's negligence, for example, would be 50% to 200% of loss of revenue, all the way up to fraud, which is 500% to 800% of loss of revenue. Some items, if you get it wrong, you import something that's not that requires FDA licensing, and you don't have it, your goods may be excluded or they could be seized. We have the same thing. Another big program in the United States now is these forced labor programs. You cannot import something into the United States that has been made with forced labor or North Korean labor. And customs from time to time sends out inquiries asking for people to prove that their products are not made with forced labor or North Korean labor. And there you have to have records, you have to work with the manufacturer to have production records, employment records, payment records to prove that your goods can be imported into the United States. I think that's my last slide. Navin, let's just go to the last one. Yeah, thank you very much. If anybody has any questions, you have my details. We're available to assist you any way we can. Have a great day.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, everyone. Okay, so, feel free to ask any question in the chat box. I know many of you had already sent us the questions when you were registering for the webinar. And now in this case, I will have Anuj to come over the show, and he can go over the questions one by one, and then one of the panelists will pick on any question and answer. But Anuj, now you have the microphone, and you get onto it, please.
Thank you, Naveen, and thank you everyone for a wonderful presentation. It was really enlightening, and I would like to put to all the panelists a few questions that were sent to us in advance, as Naveen said, while they were registering for the event. So here comes the first question, which says, how to enter the US market and sell our product over there. So I don't know who would like to answer that. I think maybe it's a company which is new, who doesn't have much experience about the exports. So I think they would like to know basically what are the kind of documents required for import to the US. I'm pretty sure they would know about the exports, but what would be the list of documents that would be required for this company to register themselves at the port and for an EV custom clearance, so that they don't have any document issues later on? Maybe I can ask Bill to answer this.
Absolutely. I believe it was part of the presentation from Charlene. Commercial invoice, packing list, bill of lading are the basic documents, and then you would have to go from there. You'd have to go from the type of product and the place where it's coming from. From India, you could have other issues. If it's an agricultural product or FDA, I mean, we can go on and on. But those are the basic documents: a commercial invoice, packing list, and a bill of lading, or transportation document. If it's air, it's an airway bill.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah, the question.
If someone has to export a consignment from India, would they have to register with the U.S. Customs for imports? Would they have to take a bond?
No. Well, I mean, you'd have to determine who the party is going to be responsible for the import side. So if he's selling to somebody in the USA, then you would go back to those Incoterms. You would determine which party is going to be responsible for which part of the transportation and clearance, and then you would go from there. The person that's shipping to somebody in the US, if somebody contacts this manufacturer and says, "Hey, I want to buy your product," and typically that person will be the importer. If you're just shipping to the USA, generally speaking, and you're not, you're going to be the importer of record, then you would take on all of those responsibilities.
Okay, so we have a lot of companies here who would use Entry India's warehousing solution. So would they need to go for a single entry bond, or is there an option for a multiple entry bond? Because they would be stocking their goods in the warehouses in America and selling it to the e-commerce players like Amazon. They would be selling on Amazon or other such marketplaces.
There is a continuous bond that is good for a period of 1 year.
Okay. I have another question which says, would like to know about the various certifications needed for exporting garments and clothing to the US market. Are there any special requirements in terms of documents? From what I understand, I think for children, since I'm into the apparel business, I think for the children clothing, you need a CPSC certificate kind of a thing. But for adults category, I don't know if there is something. I mean, this is a question which has come up.
Well, there are requirements for special documents to be able to clear customs, like I said in the information. But there's also labels that need to be required. Wear and apparel requires certain labels. So if anybody has questions about that, that's where they would reach out to a broker or to Mr. Silverman as an attorney, and they would be able to advise them when the proper requirements to import wear and apparel.
Okay.
But I think you're right, Anuj. It's for children's garments. There are issues. Also for sleepwear, there are issues. Other than that, there's no special certification that's required. And Charlene is absolutely right. The place where most of our clients have issues has to do with the Textile Fiber Products Identification Act, and that's how you mark your products in terms of fiber content, care labels, and all those kinds of things.
I have another question which says, how to achieve best prices on duties, freight, clearing, and delivery to clients? I mean, which means how to find out the best freight forwarder in simple terms. The most reliable ones.
How to find the best freight forwarder? You're looking at you do your research. What are you going to be comfortable with? Are you going to be comfortable with a large multimodal, huge organization, or are you more comfortable with a small family broker? You know, who's responsible for what? Are you going to be responsible for everything through to destination? Are you just responsible to get it to, you know, like along out of your factory? You know, so really it depends on a lot of issues, but how to find the broker. First of all, I would say analyze your transaction and determine what you're going to be doing with this. Are you going to be setting up a warehouse in the USA and delivering from there? So you would need everything taken care of. You know, so there's a lot of it's hard to answer that question when you don't know what the details of it are. But essentially, by being on this webinar, you're starting the process to find the person that's right for you.
Absolutely.
Let me just add one thing. The duty rates in this country on apparel and footwear tend to be pretty high. I'm sorry. Other than that, duty rates are low, and freight charges are much higher than duties to be paid. So you can use a Bill Skinner or a Charlene Riley as freight forwarders to keep that freight cost down. That's a very important part of entering the U.S. market.
Right. So there's another thing. What's the average time it takes for a consignment to be cleared at New York and New Jersey? How much time does it take to clear a shipment at New York, New Jersey?
Anuj, the voice wasn't clear enough.
No,
I think you asked how long it takes to clear something.
I think that, yes.
Yeah. How long does it take to clear a consignment at New York and New Jersey?
Quote.
I mean, I'm happy to answer that. If you're coming by ocean, I mean, you should have that product cleared before it even gets to the becomes available. That's our goal, is always to have it cleared before it's available. Now, you could have extenuating circumstances where you have examinations and or other things from customs, and then you would need to coordinate that through your broker to get the container moved to the exam site. In the New York, New Jersey area, we have a container examination system where the containers move off site of the piers to facilities that are built and approved by U.S. Customs for handling examinations. And so we get them off of the pier and out of the demurrage and detention charges into the facilities that handle the exams and turn them around. And they're pretty good at getting them done within a few days, depending on the timing of there could be times when it's more difficult than other times, but for the most part, the facilities that handle the container examinations in the U.S. in the New York, New Jersey area are very good at moving the freight very quickly. So within a few days at worst, you should have a customs release for your product.
I think Anuj's system is stuck. Anuj?
Right. I'm there.
Okay.
Okay. So the next one is how to sell jewelry in the US market. So I think that's for Navin to answer. That's not. Does jewelry import require any? I'm just taking it up from here. Does jewelry import require any special certification in the US? Maybe Robert can answer this.
I'm sorry.
Somebody is saying they want to export coffee. Somebody is saying they want to export jewelry. So for coffee, jewelry, such products, are there some special import requirements for entry into the US?
It will depend on the product. So jewelry, for example, you don't need any special certification. For coffee, that's got to be covered by the FDA. So I'm sure you have to be registered with the FDA. The producer has to be registered. all those things. It'll be a product by product answer.
Okay, okay. And then there's another one which says we would like to partner with a company who can deliver our goods and handle everything from the Indian port to door delivery of our clients, which in a way means, I think, LDP, right? Right, Bill? If someone has to do a LDP shipment, so do you have an arrangement where your company picks up the goods at origin and delivers it to the customer in their warehouse?
Absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
Okay. And I think you would call it LDP, right?
DDP was the
DDP.
Incoterm that is appropriate.
DDP.
Delivered duty paid. He's basically
Yeah.
saying that he's going to take on the responsibility all the way to the door to the delivered party. And so everything would be on him in terms of cost and risk.
Okay. There is another one which says we have partnered with the jet pulverizer company Philadelphia and have started manufacturing for them in India. We would like to know more about the best shipping options available. So I think you've already maybe answered, because you have all the options: sea, air. So
Yeah, there's all kinds of options. A freight forwarder is basically the party that you want to contact to determine what the best routing of your freight is. There's all kinds of issues that can come between you and delivering your goods to your customer. And going to Philadelphia is different than New York. If you wanted your container to be unloaded in Philadelphia, you're going to reduce your allotment of vessels that come. Typically to Philadelphia, goods will come into New York and then move in bond to Philly because of the amount of vessels that are available.
right. Robert, I have another one for you. It's again on coffee. I'm so sorry, there are too many questions on coffee today. It says, please give us a detailed list of documents we need to export green coffee to US. What are the clearance documents required when the coffee consignment reaches the port?
I don't know the answer for coffee. If you get this person's email address, I can shoot him a note back.
Right. I think we'll give him your email ID and basically he can consult with you later on.
Yes, that's fine. I don't mind. I'll do it as a courtesy. No problem.
Right.
That's a quick answer.
Okay, so there are some questions here in the chat box also. So let's see if we can cover those. So I think this first one is for Nick. It says that is Michigan within the serviceable area for New York and New Jersey port? I don't think so, but.
No, that's a good question. It certainly is. And, Michigan is located in the region which known as the Midwest. And as I mentioned on the intermodal rail slide, we certainly do have access to Michigan. And for example, the container would get off the vessel at one of our terminals would be transferred to an intermodal rail facility, or we call it express rail, located within the port. Then it would go by rail. Most likely if it's going to Michigan, it would probably go to Chicago. As I mentioned, Chicago is a major rail hub in the United States. And then it would likely be from Chicago, get taken off of the rail by one of the Class 1 railroads and trucked to, a warehouse or distribution center in Michigan. So absolutely. And we would most likely be the most direct port for access to Michigan. Like I said, most of the big ports have rail access, but if you look at a map, you can see from the Port of New York and New Jersey by rail, it's a direct shot to Chicago.
Wonderful. Okay, so this next question, I'm reading in the chat. It's Realme. Okay, the question is how to find registered companies in USA. I do not know what that means, but so that we can contact for our exports any association or organization where USA importer or member or having membership. That would be great help. So I guess they are trying to look for who freight forwarder, registered
Well,
in any
yeah,
association.
I can answer this. I mean, there is part of the data that I received for my slides was produced by a company called Datamine, and they pulled information from the peers, the port information. It's basically a database of all transactions that occur in the maritime industry based on bill of lading information. So a lot of folks that are looking for parties to do transactions with will use that database to draw information on potential clients and customers. And a freight forwarder can help you with that. So if you contact your freight forwarder and tell him, hey, I'm looking for to contact parties in the New York area that import from India garments, they can pull out data from that system and find parties that are involved in that category.
Okay, well, thank you, Bill. Okay, so next question is from Ravindran, and it says, "Can I have best advice for consignments moved from Basel or Eversport to Michigan?" Nick,
I think Nick just answered that.
that's the one, right? Okay, so no, I did not know where Basel or Evers is.
Yeah, no, that would be the same. Yeah, I just broke down the basic. Also to note, you could certainly, truck your freight out there. It's going to cost you a lot, but that is an option as well. Shippers do it. There's the 400 to 350 to 500 mile radius where the shipper will make the determination, or a forwarder will make the determination depending on services, and rail availability, whether it be truck or rail. So, Michigan is outside the 500 miles, certainly from the Port of New York and New Jersey, but rail would be your best option there, most economical.
Okay, now next question is by Vasundhara, and she says, "Hi Robert, please let me know if a material gets damaged due to any environment issue during transit and the buyer in USA rejects or don't accept the material. Is there any legal help for the exporter?"
Well, I mean, you might have a claim against the shipping company, but I think those are pretty difficult to do. If the exporter rejects it, then the question is, what do you want to do with the freight? Do you want to accept it? Do you want to destroy it? Do you want to sell it to another country? That's up to you. You need to work out something with your customer and see what you can do.
All right, thank you. Okay, next question.
Yeah, the Incoterms would come in play there as well. I mean, what was the terms of the sale that they had? Because the depending on the terms, the buyer may have been responsible for the transportation where the damage occurred. So those are important questions.
Yeah, that's a good point. The buyer may already own it. If you sell it FOB foreign port, then it's the buyer's problem.
Okay, well, now next question is by Rajneesh, and it says that one of our customers is in Mexico and requires warehousing in USA. What will be the procedure of doing it through NJ Port?
I'd say you like Bill and Charlene and Bob has said, work with a broker to set that up. Work with a forwarder.
Okay. And then there is a question that would like to know certificates for edible oils like coconut oil. Okay, that's. I think that's FDA approval is required, right?
That is correct, but they would need to have more specific information to
Okay.
determine.
Okay, so all right, so a question that is says, what is CPAT? Does every custom broker require it?
It's CTPAT. It's a government program. It stands for Customs Trade Partnership Against Terrorism. The customs brokers, most customs brokers, many are members of the CTPAT program. We do not require our customers to be CTPAT. Many CTPAT importers, though, do want their broker to be CTPAT certified. They also look for the steamship lines, the ocean carriers to be CTPAT certified. So it's more based upon the importers determining their partners to be CTPAT more than a broker stipulating that their customers be CTPAT certified.
It's a volunteer program that people join through with the Customs Service. The idea is if your cargo is secure, you're going to be subject to fewer inspections.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Next question is by Adesh. It says that can Dillon and Chicago be serviced from New York, New Jersey? What are the advantages vis-a-vis Charleston Port?
So yeah.
Yes, Charleston Port, you're going to have less options, as Bill mentioned, both in terms of ocean carrier services going to Charleston, as well as your rail destinations from Charleston. So I don't know all the specifics about the Port of Charleston, but you definitely, it's a smaller port, which sometimes could work better if you do have a service there. I'm not going to say that, but you're going to have a lot less options in terms of ocean, trucking, rail, all the above. All your transportation options are going to be much less out of a port like Charleston.
Okay.
But yeah, those destinations can certainly be serviced out of New York, New Jersey.
Okay. All right. So I have one question, and I think I heard Robert talking about it, a GSP program, Generalized Systems of Preferences. I think India is no longer a part of it, and Trump removed India, I think, in 2019, if I'm not wrong. Is that correct, Robert?
I think so, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Any other programs where Indian exporters to US can benefit from when they're importing their stuff from India other than GSP also? No.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Okay. And we touched upon e-commerce. I know that, at Entry India, we are dealing with a lot of companies who are getting into e-commerce. So one thing that is coming out of it is that, of course, New York, New Jersey area where, maximum number of NRIs live here, like non-resident Indians, people of Indian origin. And the most density-wise population is in New Jersey, of course. So in New Jersey is a highly targeted market. When warehousing is coming, I've noticed that in New York, New Jersey area, warehousing has become very expensive. Now, from the perspective of e-commerce, how would we propose New York, New Jersey? I know that Nick talked about it in detail. What I mean to say is that when a company is looking for a warehousing to get the order fulfillment for e-commerce, it basically doesn't matter where warehouse is, because the order fulfillment can be done from anywhere. Now, the question that comes up is that should I choose, let's say, Norfolk, Virginia, or I should choose New York, New Jersey, but if I do warehousing here, it can be a little expensive when I do warehousing in North Carolina, let's say that. So how should we come across to the prospects to bring them here to the New York, New Jersey port? Nick and everyone?
I can start, and Bill or Charlene may want to jump in, but there's just a lot of factors to consider. So depending on geography, and I'll start with two: geography and services. So if your market is located in Virginia, right, and you have your warehouse, you found a warehouse there, and you have a better rate, okay, that might make more economic sense. But if your market is located in both, the New York, New Jersey region as well as Virginia, and you found a warehouse in New Jersey, it may cost you more for storage, but if you're transporting it locally, over time, it will be less, as well as, again, the services coming to the Port of New York, New Jersey. Port of Virginia is also a larger port on the East Coast, different than Charleston, but it just depends on a lot of factors. And again, using a broker or a forwarder, they're going to be able to break that down for you really from origin to destination and get you the best services and get, to try and find you transportation, storage, distribution, all those important components. It's just a lot of factors that, to be agnostic to answer this question, it really is, it depends on a lot.
Sure. No, I understand. Thank you very much. I just want to make sure that I have this part cleared up, because this is coming up a lot many times. Okay, Anuj, do you have any more questions?
I have one question, which is to Robert. In one of your slides on e-commerce, you mentioned that individual shipments doesn't require any formal customs entry. And then you also mentioned about the $800 slab. Does it mean that any shipment which is at a value of $800 or lower will not require a formal customs clearance? Am I correct in understanding this?
No, that would not be correct, because it's limited again to a shipment for. I mean, it's really directed toward a consumer, but the shipment has to be under $800, but it can only be the consignee's one shipment per day. That's it.
Right.
So you do commercial transactions. You can't send 10 $800 shipments into the United States to avoid the customs duties. That would be a problem.
But let's assume it's one shipment to one customer valuing less than $800.
If I order garments from Abercrombie and Fitch, and they send it to me from India, and the shipment is $800, it comes to me as a consumer. There's no formal customs entry that's required, and I don't have to pay any customs duty. That assumes that's my only order that day for me. So it's consumer oriented.
Okay. And one last question to you, Robert. What is the duty on man-made fibers? Would you be able to answer, or would you have to check your records?
Have to check the tariff schedules. It depends on what you're talking about garments. It depends on what the garment is. Man-made fiber tends to have a higher duty rate than cotton or silk. But there's different duty rates for pants and shorts and shirts, dresses. You need to know what the product is to classify it, then you get a duty rate.
Okay.
I don't think we have any more questions.
One last question, and then we are done for the day. Yes, there's one more question, so that we have covered every aspect of it. If any more, then we won't go over that. We'll just use email as a mechanism for that. So there's a last question on the chat. It says, we have material data sheet, but do we require special certification for eco-friendly chemicals from Geneva? I think Charlene talked about chemicals in her presentation.
I did, but I'm not aware of any certificates for eco-friendly chemicals out of Geneva. That would need to be researched further.
Okay, and a good eco-friendly chemical I know is water. Just all right. Okay. Well, wonderful. So we are at the end of this wonderful session. I just want to inform everyone that I got a message from Vijay Prakash, one of our panelists. He got into an accident, and
terrible.
So yes. So while we were all together, everyone, it would have been great to hear from him as well. He had a big network of people joining in, but I think they are attending him right now. Well, anyways, everyone listening in this call, well, first of all, you got, these are the experts. Feel free to connect with them, and if it is okay with the presenters, if you share your presentations with me, I'll make sure that everyone gets those presentations and they can connect with you directly. and whatever the requirements are, you can fulfill those requirements. I'll be happy to do that. And at this tail end, I'll say that of course New York, New Jersey is the best area. I've been living here for 14 years. Before that, I was in Maryland, Virginia area. That is the competition of Nick. But but I love New York, New Jersey. And a lot of business is happening. But the one thing is that e-commerce is booming. Take advantage. The markets are opening up, and this is a great time to get into business with US. Strategically, US India's relationship is going very strong. Whenever there is a strategy, there is always economic interest that comes into place. When I say strategic, it means I'm bringing in China, I'm bringing in Pakistan, I'm bringing in that part of the world. Now, strategically, when US and India are working closer, the economic interest of India and US will increase. So I'm pretty sure that there is a small trade deal is being bugged upon. If that goes through, I tell you guys, there will be a humongous growth in the trade and business, goods and services, both between US and India. The timings are perfect to get into this market in US. Any questions that you have for us, send it to me, or when the presentations are available, you can talk to the experts directly. And one last thing, that to set up your business unit here in the US, of course, I'll be working with all the experts. You connect with me on the portal. There are projects you can talk about what you want to do, who you're looking for in US, and we'll set up your business and connect you with the right service providers as we move along. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining in. And thank you, experts. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you so very much. It was supposedly 1 hour, 10-15 minutes, but we have, we have kind of crossed we've started the next marathon, I guess. So running 2 marathons in a single day. Well, thank you once again. Thank you for being so patient with me, and have a wonderful day. All right, everyone.
Thank you, Navin.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Robert. Thank you, Charlene. Thank you, Nick.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Entry India.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
Thank you.